it's a male-dominated industry, and the story or the narrative that is told by those who built the industry, who are male, and they create a story that really, not digging too far below the surface, is that it is their right. It is an industry that they have a right to. And females have a little bit, but really, this is our playground, right? It's about muscle, it's about brawn, and that narrative makes and is designed to make women feel that they are imposters or that they don't have a role. And that is rubbish. It's just rubbish.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed on the Blue Light Leavers podcast. It's really good of you. And we connected via LinkedIn. And I know this is going to be, in your story, I know this episode is going to be hugely popular with so many people. So it's great to have you here. And thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed.
Well, thank you. I'm actually honoured. And this is the kind of podcast that so many people need, because the security industry needs great people. So I'm happy to be of help if I can.
Completely agree. Absolutely. And it'd be great if you could tell us a little bit about you and about Hunter Protection and how it all came about and your career background, and because it's an amazing story. So if you just tell us how things came about, that'd be fantastic.
Well, I didn't grow up thinking I would have a security company. But interestingly, security has been in my life all my life. So the day that I was born, my father, who emigrated from England to Australia, he started on the trucks of a company called Armourguard, which over here was called Securicor. So the day I was born, he was on the truck. So I grew up with a gun on the mantelpiece, which we were in those days, for gun cabinets and all that sort of things were legal. So I grew up by pain of death of ever touching that gun, and we never did. But certainly listening and hearing stories about security, from day dot. He moved back to England, and I remember him calling me, and this is in the 80s, and on his first week, one of the guards on the trucks was murdered. And I remember him crying vividly, and I was a teenager, probably about 16, 17, I can't remember now, and him crying. He had just had to go and tell the family about what had happened to him. So again, security just has always featured in terms of, what it's about and how fantastic it can be, but also how devastating it can be when it goes wrong. So fast forward years, and I have a very successful corporate career, and I was in General Motors, Cadbury Schweppes, Virgin, and I have had the privilege to travel all around the world and to some places that are not terribly glamorous. So the first time again I had my own personal protection was in Russia, where a chap turned up with an enormous gun, and I remember sitting in a meeting going, who's he? Why is he there? And that's for your protection. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I need protection. And then, again, I was in Bangladesh, and we had personal protection, and it went really wrong. So having great personal protection and having really poor personal protection is indelibly marked on my mind of what it's like. So in Bangladesh, I was obviously attracting an awful lot of attention. I was in an area that I shouldn't have been. I was taken out for a market visit and, a bit of a show-off visit. There was security there. I didn't know who the security was. I didn't know the risk. The security guards were local guys. They didn't understand that there was a risk factor, i.e. a 5'4" blonde woman in pink cargo pants, because I hadn't even been told where we were going. And when the event happened and there was basically a mob uprising of people, curious people wanting to see me and look at me, I didn't even know what was going on. Next thing you know, I'm being run to the car. And it's interesting, when you're in a hostile environment as a client, and this is quite different from when you're in London, when you're a client in a hostile environment, you do whatever the CPO says. You just do it.
Yeah.
So when they said run, I was running. But then afterwards, when everyone had calmed down, I was like, what happened? Like those guys, the CPOs were not informed about me, so they didn't know. They didn't ask, so their communication skills weren't up to it. Certainly, it was a major security failing. Now, I'm here to tell the story, and I laugh about it and all that sort of stuff. But again, that's really scary for a client. It would have been scary for everyone. Again, Nigeria, fantastic client out there, looks after me amazingly well. But, and here's the difference, what great security a great CPO can do, which I know that they don't train in CPO courses. So I'd been there for 3 months, desperate to get out of the compound that I was living in. And I was yabbering in the backseat of the car. My clients are saying, we're going to go to a nightclub. And I was like, oh, so amazing. And I am a terrible dancer. And I had, was dancing on the dance floor. I had upset a lot of women that were there, mainly because I was stepping on them. And very quickly, I'm now the sort of the nudge that you get when you're on a dance floor. Obviously, this is quite a few years ago. Dance floor, the nudge, and then the nudge turned into a bit of a shove, and then it turned into a bit of a free fall where, again, I'm quite small, is I'm being shoved around. And my CPO jumped onto the dance floor and just started dancing with the girls. And it completely diffused the situation. I didn't have to leave. I didn't want to leave. Do you know what I mean? I just got myself into this situation. I didn't want to leave. He knew I didn't want to leave. He read the room perfectly. He diffused the situation within 30 seconds. The girls turned, he said, help this silly girl dance. They taught me how to dance. The evening progressed and he went back to the ball. Do you know what I mean? That to me is an exceptional bodyguard, an exceptional CPO, because he understood me, what I wanted to do. He understood the environment he was in. He assessed the risk really quickly, and he diffused the risk without it turning into a big production of me being run into the car and making it, So to me, that's just amazing security. So I have my own business. So in all those examples, I actually was working for myself. So from a corporate career where I was a client, I then became a consultant, and I had my own business. Actually, in Nigeria, I was working for someone else. But anyway, now I'm a consultant with my own business, and I have incredibly large clients. So Shell, Coca Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Kimberly-Clark, they're all my clients. And I am, I'm a small business. I just happen to have a proposition that large clients enjoy. And so it has also given me a lot of privilege as well in terms of being able to travel and do all sorts of things that probably if I stayed in Australia, I would never have got. So I understand entirely what it's like to come to a new industry or that looks different. I know what it's like to be in an environment that is a bit strange, that you're not super comfortable with. And so, so my history of then going to consultancy then gave me a perspective about what customers want. And I think, and I know a lot of your listeners are police, ex-police and all that sort of thing. And a lot of my CPOs that work for me are also police or ex-military. But there's a lot to be said about reshifting your focus onto what the client is. So I started my consultancy, and I remember the first day being absolutely terrified and thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I've left a safe salary, and now I'm expecting the phone to ring and the phone's not ringing. And the day one goes past, no money. Day two goes past, day three, a couple of months go past, no money. And I'm thinking, oh, and then, it does come together as well. So I diversified from doing business consultancy, which I still do, by the way. And I got into behavior and communication. And my partner is ex-military, and he came with me to a few of my workshops on behavior and communication. And he sort of said, listen, you should go to the army and do this. So I rang the British Army. And I was really fortunate to meet the most amazing regiment called the Coldstream Guards.
Uh-huh.
And they, the Lieutenant Colonel, Ed Launders, said, yes, you can come and train my guys. And we talked, I train them in terms of behavior and communication. And I specialize talking about how they talk to civilians, how they talk to each other. So without the command and control, how do you get people to do what you want? Fast forward on from there, I know I get a lot of people saying to me, I want to leave the security industry. And I happen to know that the security industry, just based on my experience with the guys in the army, is that it was an industry that I looked at that was quintessentially racing to the bottom. And I thought, if I really want to help people and give back and really help people have a great career, as great as they have come from, then I can start my own security business, and Hunter Protection was born.
Incredible.
Was that too long a way?
No, I love it. I think it's just such a great story, and I love that how you diversified, and there's so many skills there that make the perfect CPO, like you say, but they make the perfect career transition, full stop. And it's understanding the skills and the experience that you've got and being able to put it in a way that's understood by a potential future employers, those sort of things, and the behaviors and everything. All of that stuff you talked about, Karen, is so important. And
I want to also stress that I am not a CPO. I have not done my CPO license. And in my role at Hunter Protection, I am not in charge of tactics. The CPO is, you know, I give all the back office support. I go and talk to the clients. I make sure that, all the processes and the practices and the pay is all there for people. But do I jump in front of someone and protect them? No, right? And so the person that I employ needs to be able to work very much understanding what their role is and understand how I can help them. I don't do it for them. And again, like for people thinking about, is this a great career? It's a fantastic career. And there is a niche and there is a role for everyone.
Come on to that. Let's hold that thought just for a second, because just before we move on to that, what I'd really like to do, so there's a couple of points here. One is that it is a very male-dominated industry. But just before we move on to that, I'd be really keen to understand, when you're working with clients like Shell and Coca Cola and Johnson & Johnson, some of these, huge global organizations, what's different about your proposition, your value proposition to them, and how you go about doing things, and why would they come to you as opposed to some of the other organizations that might be out there? What is it that you're doing differently?
I'll tell you what.
And this is one of the reasons why I connected with you on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So just to get that out there.
So why do they connect with me? It is not because I used to be one of them, right? And I remember when I wanted to become a consultant, right? So stop becoming a marketing director and actually move to the light, I call it. Some people call it the dark side. I call it the light. I would go to headhunters and I would say, oh, but I used to be one of them, so I understand them. And then one day a woman said to me, but Karen, this consultancy that you want to work for, they don't want another client. And that really stuck with me, right? So again, if I'm employing a former police, I'm not hiring for them to be a policeman, woman. I'm not hiring someone that has a fantastic military background to be a soldier. I'm hiring them to be something else. I'm hiring them for their client focus. And so the proposition that I win with clients like Coke and Shell is that I understand the difficulties that they have, the challenges that they have, and I solve that for them. I do it without ego. I do it without an overhead that means I have to sell what I need. I sell what they need, right? So again, this is security companies as well, like if they've got huge overheads with, a whole lot of people on their books, they'll try and upsell more than what the client might need. Or equally, undersell than what the client needs, whereas I don't play that game. And certainly, people have said to me, how did you get Coke as a client? Well, I knew someone, right? How did I get Shell as a client? I knew someone. I didn't advertise, but when I presented to them, and I presented properly, I had my 30-second pitch ready. I crafted my online presence to be the person that I wanted to be, not who I had been. And the person I wanted to be was a problem solver.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in that. I happened at the time to be a business consultant and solve branding issues and category issues and how to make money with a new product, all that sort of stuff. But the underlying principles is I'm solving problems.
Yeah.
And that's not different to what I do with hunter protection.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And again, you've hit on something else there as well. I don't want, I'm really conscious of not diving around all over the place, but I always rattle on and bore people to death about the importance of networking and actually those connections and leveraging those connections. And whether it's through letting people know that you're open to look for new roles, or like you're saying, whether it's open, looking for business and saying, look, this is what I can offer. The power of relationships is so strong, and networking. Networking in the police is seen as a very dirty word. It's and people have to get over it.
Yeah, you do. You really do. And look, I wouldn't say that I'm the best networker in the world. I don't walk into the room and go, scan the room, think, right, who do I know? And spend a minute with that person, a minute with that person. And look, some networkers who are really good at it, they do that. But what I tend to do is I try and help as many people as I can, because I know that if I need them, that I can call on them. I try and make, I do most of my networking marketing through LinkedIn as we've met. And it's very easy to go connect. The next thing you know, you've got 5,000. I think we've got like 6,000 connections. And do I know 6,000 people? No, but I should, right? I should make light. So, during COVID, when unashamedly we were quiet, right? Most, in personal protection world, it was quiet.
Of course.
I would make a habit of 3 people a week, people I didn't know. I'd look at their profile and I'd think, well, they look nice. And I'd say, hi, do you want to write them a message and say, hi, I'm in a people business. I'm ashamed I don't know you. Let's meet up. So we had a Zoom call or a phone call, and some of them went nowhere. But other than that, people would say, well, Karen, can you help me do this? And now, and me being new to the industry, even the other day I met someone who's a CPO, 30 years in the business, and he called me. He'd heard about me from someone else, and he called me, and I had the lesson of all lessons of the world of CPO in the UK and around the world. Yeah. Now I couldn't offer him a job, but I can tell you now, as soon as one comes, he'll be on my list, right? Because that sort of generosity of spirit and generosity of knowledge is far more persuasive and powerful than the pettiness, fear, and disparagement that can come from from insiders of the industry who think, yeah, well, it's my right, and what's she doing here? I'd much rather give what I can. The amount of CVs that I've been writing for people. Why? Because I can do it. I've been doing it all my life,
Yeah, love it.
It just makes life a little bit easier for someone else, and all the things that I remember my first day of my consultancy is called the Small Mighty, and I knew I had a meeting with Shell. I didn't have an office. I was like, and I was disorganized. I had an old computer that had keys missing, and the only thing I really did that was clever is that a really fantastic branding agency did my proposition and did my logo for me and made me feel sort of genuine. Didn't feel like the imposter that I thought I was. And the first meeting I had, this branding agency who I'd befriended, he said, well, you can come into my office, and he put, a sign over his sign, the Small Mighty, he even bought pastries and a newspaper for my clients. And, they came in. I mean, I almost burst into tears, like that kind of generosity, and I got the gig,
Yeah.
And so that makes it just makes a huge difference to anyone. So,
That's stunning. Love that. And it's all about giving, isn't it? If you can give freely and, give what you can, then it comes back.
People will remember because it does come
Exactly.
back. If you've got, if you're indulging in pettiness and protectionism, and if I think that my generosity is, oh my God, I'm giving away trade secrets. I mean, come on, that's not going to help you anyway. And also, like, it's not just within the industry. Clients hear about it. Clients know about it. They might not see, any disparaging things that happen on Facebook and all that sort of stuff, but they understand what generosity means. Do you know what I mean? Not all my clients are, royal family members who have never had to work for a living, A lot of them are politicians, and they're just ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you can help them.
So working in a predominantly male environment, either from, strategic position as a business owner like you are, and also from, for women who may want to get into the security industry, what sort of guidance and advice would you give them?
So the security industry to me is very exciting, right? Because it is evolving, it is changing, and it's changing at a rapid pace. So, yes, it's a male-dominated industry. Yes, most clients, it is what it is, will say, I would like a male CPO. Or even if they don't say it, it's implied. But certainly there are clients, especially international clients, so North Africa, certainly for us, North Africa and the UAE, they will absolutely specify and want a female CPO. But rising above that and being grateful for a few scraps, a few morsels that, that may come a CPO, female CPO's way, is I want people to think about shifting the playing field, right? Because it's a male-dominated industry, and the story or the narrative that is told by those who built the industry, who are male, and they create a story that really, not digging too far below the surface, is that it is their right. Right? It is an industry that they have a right to. And females have a little bit, but really, this is our playground, right? It's about muscle, it's about brawn, and that narrative makes and is designed to make women feel that they are imposters or that they don't have a role. And that is rubbish. Mm-hmm. It's just rubbish. So, and I think I said this before, it's like the black cab industry, right? So male dominated, reluctant to change. And then Uber came along, and their only argument was about fear. An Uber driver's going to kill you, an Uber driver's going to rape you, or a disparagement. Uber drivers don't know how to drive. An Uber driver's going to end up costing you too much because they're not insured. An Uber driver can't get you around London. So fear and disparagement, which was basically a way of hiding the fact of the truth, is that we failed, we ignored technology, and we failed to think about an evolving customer need. Mm. They were thinking about their needs. So their needs was to keep it the way it is, because we've built an infrastructure and built an operating model that suits that. It suits a customer in a point of time. Then lo and behold, Uber comes along, and while they were spending years trying to stop Uber with fear and disparagement, Uber just became part of our vernacular. It's now our brand. I'll get an Uber. They could have gone eek, right? Albeit, a bit like, Nokia and losing sort of the smartphone technology thing, right? They could have gone eek and poured some money into the technology and had one app, just copy Uber, right? They could have done that, but they didn't. right? Because they were, and again, male-dominated industries, is that they wanted to stay the same and push the others. And that's the security industry, but it's changing, right? So there are people like me, there are other women who are sort of not buying in to that disparagement. We're not buying into that's the industry of old. The industry of old was all about, you know, a big guy who's going to walk in front of you, but the threats aren't necessarily in front of us anymore. So cyber is a massive issue, right? And so I know you're going to ask me, so how can women stand out, right? And it isn't about growing more muscles and being taller and having brawn, right? You're not going to compete on that playing field, right? There is a place for that. But, you know, having qualifications that make it impossible for me to ignore you is important, right? The SIA license is just for me, right? And this is my view. You know, I'm happy for other security companies to think differently. To me, the SIA is just a ticket for entry, a legal ticket for entry.
Yeah.
The courses, and I haven't done it, but I've certainly spoken about them at length. And I have done a security course, which was basically a no-fail, tick a box exercise, go around the room, and everyone passed. No one moved on. You know, don't go past go. Is that the right? Until everyone could get through it. You know, within 10 minutes, I'd passed the whole thing of my 4 or 5 day course. Now that's just being a security guard so that I can run a security company. But, you know, the CPO's courses, I mean, I met a lady the other day who's now a security guard and she wants to become a CPO. The job centre has offered to pay for her CPO license course, which is now online, which I don't get. So it's an online course. It's 7 weeks, 3 weeks being practical, 4 weeks online. It doesn't offer anything other than first aid at work. That's not good enough, right? The first thing because you're going to compete against someone who's got first responder at scene.
Yeah.
Right? She's now going to front her civilian qualifications, right? You know, she doesn't have the experience that perhaps the police and ex-military do. And she's going to front that and be up against people who don't. So her choice of course is really poor. Now I feel sorry for her because she's going to, well, the job centre is paying for her, but you know, she's going to waste 7 weeks of her life for people that aren't, you know, they have to spend their money. But not only that, they're going to get to me, they're going to see a job advertised by me or another organisation, and she's going to put her CV in, she's going to say, well, I've got the qualifications, but no, she doesn't, because she's just looked at the licence as that's her ticket of entry, whereas to me that doesn't signify capability or suitability to work at a high end. And I think it's really sad because then she's going to feel absolutely devastated, and she's going to say, well, I thought I did the right thing. And so it's cruel.
Yeah, it is. That's really tough, isn't it? And like you say, she's obviously feels like she's doing the right thing, but clearly got the wrong guidance. So
absolutely. And as you know, confidence and feeling that you've done all the right thing is really it's the first thing that you go when you're going through a tough time. You think, oh God, you know, this is me. And if, you know, losing your confidence is huge.
Yeah.
In any industry, no matter what you do, you know, whether you're a brain surgeon or, you know, you're a checkout chick.
Yeah.
It's important.
So with regards to a career or qualifications that people might be looking at, obviously we're not going to talk about individual course suppliers or anything like that, but what would be the must-haves that you would look for on the CV? So
I think you've got to have, so you've got to have FREC. Pediatrics is really useful.
What's FREC?
FREC is first response emergency care. I probably butchered that. Medicine in remote areas is a really good one. Firearms in the UK, Europe, you're not going to use it really. Pediatrics, I think I've said. Anything cyber, even learning the language of cyber, you know, people sit there and go, oh my God, I don't know anything about cyber, because they imagine cyber is about the computer. Cyber is also about behavior. And if you can help a family create a safer, more intelligent approach to how they approach their cybersecurity, to me, that is incredibly valuable. So think about your SIA license as just one half, that's your ticket of entry, but then work out what you need to really make a difference. A chauffeur's license makes a big difference.
Right, wow.
And a chauffeur's license you can get from Uber, right? Because then if something goes wrong, as a CPO, you can go and drive your client home.
Okay.
Right? And I'm not trying to, I don't like this sort of trend where, you know, I saw it the other day on LinkedIn or a Facebook group, I can't remember, or as a CPO, come be a CPO for £40,000. And you'll be required to answer all the phones, do a bit of gardening, work around the house, walk the dogs. Basically, it was a general handyman dressed up in a suit. And I think that is actually, it reduces the sort of the value of the CPO. And to me, that person, and came from a house staffing company, you know, be a jack of all trades and be grateful for it. Because I don't think that actually helps the industry. It certainly doesn't help someone's motivation. But also a lot of that is reflective of, and I may be going off piste here for you, but you know, a lot of that is reflective of people not knowing how to sell the services of a CPO. You know what I mean? And sell and explain to a client what they need to do their job properly. You know, there's a little bit of, we'll do anything. Oh, yeah, they can do anything. Right? Well, you know, you wouldn't ask a brain surgeon to do the gardening. You know, but I think there's a lack of people understanding how to sell a service. And I guess that's what I can do, because that's what I do now. And it is about helping people. You know, a client isn't expected to know what a CPO needs to do the best of his ability. You know, like the amount I had a guy during lockdown. He'd worked on a television program, and he'd spent 12 hours at night for 7 nights in a row. No, so I'm wrong. 4 nights in a row under a poncho, a plastic poncho, in the driving rain in the freezing cold. Now, that's not a function of the client being cruel. That's a function of the security company not explaining that to a very wealthy production company. Yeah. You know, a lean-to would be a good idea, and they would have provided. Yeah. Right? Because having had CPOs myself and security you know, my own security, I certainly didn't ask the security company to make them as uncomfortable and cold and wet as possible. You know, in fact, it was the opposite. What do I need to do to help them? Because I don't know. Yeah. So help me understand that.
Yeah. So I think so sort of going with that, I guess it's very difficult to answer this, I suppose, but I hope you can. In terms of the day-to-day sort of role of a close protection officer, what would your job spec look like, and you know, what would you be looking for them to actually do? What would be their sort of daily tasks? So what would be reasonable and what would not? Obviously, we'll cover what wouldn't be reasonable in terms of staying under a poncho, freezing cold for 4 days. But you know, what would be the expectations from you and Hunter Protection?
So to work for Hunter Protection, you know, it's, as I said, SIA the first, just that's one half. You've got to have all that put to bed and make it stand out for me. But I'm looking for someone who has got social intelligence and emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is about how you conduct yourself, right? And social intelligence is how you influence others. Right? Now, when I give a brief to a client, a CPO, it is about what the client needs, right? And then I'm looking for someone that can actually meet those needs and solve those problems, right? So, and the amount of times that I've heard CPOs turn up and say, well, I was just told to turn up, you know, at Number 6 Smith Street, I'm making that up. Number 6 Smith Street, the client's wearing a blue suit and he's in a Rolls. That's not a brief, right? How on earth can a CPO then look to solve that person's problems when then that's the only brief they've got? Right? And then the likelihood of being embarrassed, not wearing the right thing, missing the client completely, all of that is a risk which I want to take away. So my brief to a CPO is usually all about the client. I spend a lot of time doing behavior analysis of the CPOs that work for us and also the client. And because I can do it pretty quickly, I don't get to do it officially for the client, but I can work it out. And then I talk about, well, this client has these kind of behavioral preferences, match it with this. And I'm looking for people who can adapt to that. And the emotional intelligence, it's really important when you're a CPO, because you're on your own a lot. Do you know, with all the best will in the world, I'm not going to, me or, any of my ops guys, they're not holding their hand. So you have to be able to hold yourself, confidently and competently. And then you also have to be able to influence others. It's different if you're in a hostile environment, because when you're a CPO working in a hostile environment, they will tell you themselves, it's a lot easier because the client, when I say jump, the client says jump. And having done that, yeah, absolutely. Because I'm scared. I need them. But when I'm walking around London, or I'm in I have a bit of a different attitude. And so I'm telling the CPO what to do. And sometimes what I'm telling him to do is not necessarily the right thing to do. So I need the CPO to also be able to say, sir, madam, this is why, but we're not going to do that. And then they have to stand their ground. They also have to be able to be prepared that the client might say, I want to do that. And then they need to be able to say, well, okay, how do I handle this? And usually they can't ring me up and go, Karen, they've said this and now I've said that, that can't happen. So I have to do all the work up front. And I do, I do all the work up front so that, the chances of them ringing me in a complete and utter flap, or worse, fired, where now I've got damage control. Yeah. That's what they're doing. So the brief is about the client and about how they might need to adapt their own styles.
So I guess the massive difference for both police and military is it's actually a lot more customer focused, isn't it, than it would be?
And that's the biggest thing that I always say, I think I've said it before, I didn't hire you to be a policeman. Yeah. And so part of learning a new industry or coming into the industry is there's a recalibration of who you are, and then who is your client. What is your role? Yeah. Right. So, and I say this as much to soldiers as to police, is that I'm not hiring you to be a police. You don't have those epaulets. A client is not looking for you to judge them or police them. That you're there to protect them. And there are some situations where, police say to me all the time, we make better CPOs than military because we're used to talking to civilians. And then the military say to me, we make better CPOs because, we've done more things. We've traveled more. I don't care, right? I'm not hiring you to be the policeman, right? And to be honest, it's a dumb argument. Sorry. It's not a smart argument. I want to know that you had the discipline and the training, and I'm impressed by all of that. But what I'm now impressed about is how you could quickly recalibrate your thinking, recalibrate your attitude, right? Humility works, right? So that you can then show me how well you can adapt to serve a client, right? And, some police and some soldiers, they don't do well because they're still thinking that the uniform is on. And the client, people around them, their colleagues, me, should do as they say. And it just doesn't work like that anymore. anymore.
No, it's a very different mindset, isn't it, without a shadow of a doubt. What is really reassuring, though, is that it feels like, and I've heard this from others as well, that a lot of the skills and the experience, that skill set that we can get through policing, if you mix that with a degree of humility, willingness to learn, take courses and educate yourself, all of those sort of things. So there are certainly opportunities within
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's going to be civilian CPO, well, potential CPOs are sitting there going, well, can I compete? Well, you can, but to be honest, military or police, they have an advantage. It is what it is, right? Yeah. But equally so, there are, the world is not created equal, right? So I would like to say to, people that impress me are those that have continually looked at their own training and kept it up to date.
Yeah. And
they're looking to solve problems. The chap that I referred to that gave me the 2-hour lesson on being a CPO, he said he spent just a few years in the military and now he spent 30 years on the circuit. Now, there are guys who have spent 25 years in the military and just a few years. Now, can I put them as equals? Well, no, but they're each going to have to show what can they bring to the party, right? And so, again, I always say to people, come into the industry, but do it with the right intention. Someone who's a security guard who's sitting there enviously thinking, oh, gee, I would like to wear a suit and I'd like the opportunity to go to Barbados or, Davos, and I'd like to do all of that. And by the way, I get, 300, 400 a day. Wow, that's the wrong motivation, right? That's not impressive. People understand why, I'm going to ask you, why do you want to be a CPO? And if the answer is because I'm going to get more money, it doesn't do it for me.
No, well, it's great that you came on to that, because I was just about to ask you exactly that around, the interview process, if you like. If people do tick all the boxes in terms of their skill set and the experience, are you able to tell us anything without giving too many trade secrets away? But are you able to tell us anything about the interview process?
So to get on my radar, and it's deliberately, I've made our interview process quite difficult because I want to weed out, people. For how not to get a job with me is to send me a message, got any work? That's getting you to the do not use file quicker than anything. Or being rude.
It's just rude, isn't it? Yeah.
It's just rude, right? Or being unprofessional, or, I have no problem with people reaching out to me saying, Karen, I'd like your insight, I'd like your experience. And then the conversation will be, visit our website, go to our recruitment page, upload all your documents. And if you're not prepared to do that, I can't use you.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the first answer. And then the next bit is we'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb. CVs presented in an unprofessional way drive me crazy. And I am not, if I have to work hard to see how great you are, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? I want you to be able to tell me why I should hire you. So, the 30-second elevator pitch, your qualifications that are explained, because often a client will say, send me their CV. Well, if the CV is written all in code, so not only don't I understand it, but the client is never going to understand it, right? Yeah. So, so I'm digressing a little bit, but so get someone to write your CV for you. It's 50 to 100 quid, right? Stand out, right? Make me interested to ring you up, because then the next stage is either an interview with me or my ops guy, but certainly it will always end with me, depending on who I think the client might be. They might even have to come and have lunch with me, because I want to know that they can put their knife and fork together. I want to know they're going to be a reflection of Hunter Protection. I have to know that I'm going to grill them on their emotional intelligence, their social intelligence. I am going to look crazily through their social media profile. So, again, there's a bit of a clue there. Curate your online image and then lock it down. I will still probably be able to find a way around it. I'll find someone who knows you. Right? So it is incredible the amount of, and it's more of a Facebook thing than a LinkedIn thing, but the Facebook spats that people get into, it's really not clever. Because I'm thinking, well, if you're being indiscreet or talking too much or talking about things you don't understand, or you're talking about others in a disparaging way, to me that says you don't know how to handle yourself in an environment that is, you know, completely just, you have to be completely discreet. You know, professional always. And then, you know, you've got a goofy picture or nude photos or, you know, just the amount of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great advice though. Thanks, Karen. That is so helpful. So any last sort of words of wisdom, anything that you think we should have covered that I probably haven't?
Look, it's an industry that is exciting, right? It's evolving, it's changing. There are niche businesses popping up all the time that I just love the sound of, you know, and there's room for these niche, you know, not everyone wants to have a team of bodyguards, for example. You know, not everyone wants to, I mean, I don't run security guards. I don't do door work or anything like that. There is room forever to solve people's problems. And so understand what those problems are of the ultra high net worth, you know, understand those problems, follow them on Instagram, look at what's going on, understand the client, and then sell yourself to me, and that will get you a job.
And could that be someone who has had no experience previously? Is this the sort of thing where people need to have experience, or if they have the right skill set, the right temperament, you know, is it something that where people could get an opportunity?
Yes, it is, absolutely. If you've done, remember it's half, right? If you've got the opportunity, you've got the right training, you are from a reputable security trainer, right? That's hard, that's easier said than done, right? You can't just Google it. I would say get on Facebook and speak to people, ask them what's a good course, what's not a good course. Avoid courses that have got a crazy high pass rate, because that just tells me that it's a tick box exercise that, you know, that's not clever. Check out the additional qualifications. Don't do this cheap, right? So, you know, I'm not here to tout one company above others, but, you know, going cheap or going to a company that I think even just started in 2020, I would steer away from, because a lot of security companies who went, oh my God, the clients aren't coming in this year, no one's traveling, then said, I'll make money through training. And to me, that's a bit disingenuous. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong if some of those courses turn out to be absolutely amazing. But personally, right at this time, come 2021, I would say go with a reputable brand. And then stand out by doing those qualifications, you know, and do qualifications that, you know, I haven't even thought about. You know, we have a client who wants, he's a real action man, right? He wants to go swimming. He wants to go skydiving. He wants to go mountaineering. All those things I can go, oh, wow, right? So you don't have to have a 25-year military career or a 20-year police career, you know, but if you can say, well, actually, I can do all of this, Karen, I've done my training, but also, you know, even I'm great with kids, and I'm fantastic at Xbox or PlayStation. Obviously, I don't do that sort of thing. You know, if you're a gamer, well, actually, I can entertain your kids. Fantastic, right? It's just putting yourself out there and understanding what's the client's problem to solve, and show how you can do it, how you can solve it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Amazing insight. Thank you so much for your time. Really
I hope
appreciate
that was
it.
helpful.
I think, without a doubt, absolutely stunning. Thank you so much.
And you know what, like your listeners can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
I was just about to ask exactly that.
And I'll do my best to chat to you. So, you know, we're open, and, you know, anything that I can help, I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much, Karen. Really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. It's great talking with you. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
So as always, huge thanks to Karen for her time today. It was a great interview, and I really appreciate the fact that she gave so freely of her knowledge, her expertise, and sharing with us, how to really stand out and sort of things that her and her organisation look for in close protection officers and people working within the security industry. So if you like what you've heard, then please leave a review and click 5 stars. And don't forget, you can also go to the Blue Light Levers website, www.bluelightlevers.com. Loads of information and help support on there. And you've also got the private Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Blue Light Levers. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now.